I think that the most important changes don't need to be made in the newsroom, but in the classroom. I went down to New Orleans before the flood and met with students in the Bishop Perry Middle School, a Catholic middle school that served African American boys below the poverty line. And I was asking them news questions, and one of them mentioned Donald Rumsfeld, who was then Secretary of Defense. And I said, "How do you know Rumsfeld?" And the kid said, "Well, I read about him on the New York Times online." So I said, "You read the New York Times online?" I tried to hide my surprise, but it's a middle school kid from New Orleans, poor middle school kid from New Orleans. He said, "Yeah, my teacher assigned it 2 years ago." And all the kids around the table, there were a bunch of 8th graders, all the kids were going like this. And I said, "You guys read the New York Times online too?" Yes. And this school had transformed itself. It had assigned everyone to read the Times. It had assigned people to ask tough questions of mayoral candidates in New Orleans. It had really invigorated this curriculum to make it political and to make these kids really active participants. And that made all the difference. And so I thought, why couldn't we transform high schools around the country? Why not offer, let's say, a civics portion of the SATs? And colleges could maybe take a peek. When I wrote about this in the Chronicle of Higher Education, someone wrote me back saying, "That's a bad idea. Only a small subsection of college seniors take the SATs. Why not offer a civics test for all college seniors? We offer it for citizens who want to become, for people who want to become citizens. Why not offer it to all college seniors? We won't kick them out if they fail, right? But maybe the colleges could take a peek at that." I was speaking to a group of Brandeis students up in Boston, and I said, "Why is it that civic engagement has declined across the board over 30 years, but that young people are volunteering more than ever before?" And one of the Brandeis kids said, "I know why. National Honor Society." I said, "What?" He said, "National Honor Society, that's why we all volunteer." And I was depressed. I was horrified. Could it be that people are just volunteering for National Honor Society? I don't think that's true. But to some extent, National Honor Society does foster a sense of volunteerism. And that shouldn't be a depressing thing. It should be an uplifting thing because we can socially engineer good behavior. We can also socially engineer good news habits as well. If we care about it and we assign it, young people will change their habits. That's why Alan Miller's work that we heard about yesterday is so important. I'm especially impressed with the work that you're doing here at Stony Brook. I'm impressed with the work recognizing the difference between media in general and journalism in particular. I'm impressed with the importance that's put on the American press and its relationship with government. Nancy Cantor's remarks yesterday about democracy were very inspiring. The message of your program is to engender greater awareness, and students can use this awareness to empower themselves. News literacy is very different than media literacy. Many media literacy advocates do a great job. A subsection of media literacy is interested in only showing bias. And when we only show bias, and we only show the corporate and government pressures, we first of all, we end the discussion with journalists, because if you're an academic and let's say you say, I'm really doing a good job with my students, I've had them all read Chomsky. Chomsky calling journalists stooges, government stooges, well, that just kind of ends the conversation with journalists, and it also turns young people off away from the promise of news. I'm not suggesting that Chomsky should never be read, but media literacy needs to also empower young people to find news that can hold leaders accountable and to make them muscular citizens. And this is the key difference between skepticism and cynicism. We want to breed skeptics. Skeptics do a great job at working in our democracies. Cynics don't believe anything. Journalism survives for the skeptics The cynics don't believe what journalists say. They don't believe the government. And we need to have citizens who stay informed and to paradoxically develop some kind of trust of the watchdogs. Now, we also want to inculcate a sense of healthy skepticism, but we also need a certain degree of trust in the watchdogs, because recent polls have shown that, that young people are trusting the government in the last 30 years, and the military more and more, and the press less and less. And when these two lines cross, we're in danger. When we trust the watchdogs less than we trust the government, we're in trouble.